Every time I come to the courts, I look around and see all the rec players playing their games, and the number one mistake I see is probably something you wouldn't expect, which is unfortunate because of how important it is. So if you're ever playing games and you're losing points because you feel like you're a step slow or you're out of position, which makes you miss the ball, you're probably making this mistake too. And what this mistake is you're not taking your movement seriously and you're not moving properly as a pickleball player. So in this video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you through the 7 main aspects of how to properly move in pickleball, which will help every single shot in your game. I highly recommend you watch this whole video because it's only 10 minutes long, but if you commit to the whole thing, you'll have this information, which will help every shot in your game for the rest of your pickleball career. So pay close attention and let's get into it. So the first thing that you need to keep in mind whenever you're playing a point in pickleball, and you might already know this, but it's that whenever you're waiting for the ball, you should be in an athletic stance. And it's crazy how many people I see that aren't doing this. Essentially what you don't want to be doing though is you don't want to be playing a point standing straight up on your heels, not looking like you're low and ready to respond to the ball. So what you want to be doing is you want to be low, have bent knees, a wide base. You want to have a wide stance like I do here, and you always want to be on your toes. Because in this position, you have a lower center of gravity, and it's easier for you to accelerate in any direction. So forward, back, side to side, you're just in a better position here. It's also safer. It's harder to fall down when you're in this position. Regardless of your physicality, you should be able to do some form of this. So maybe you're not as quick as you used to be, you still should be able to have a little bit wider base. It's gonna help you move in any direction without getting hurt, and you'll be able to do it quicker and you'll be able to do it more on balance so that you can respond to harder shots. The next thing that you have to understand to have proper footwork in pickleball is what we call the split step. So all a split step is it looks like this. So what I'm doing is I'm stopping and getting into my athletic stance. So the reason it's a split is because I jump into my wide base. So the reason for this in pickleball, you don't need to do it on every shot, but it makes a lot of sense to use a split step when you're moving really quickly and then you need to get ready to hit the ball very quickly. So a lot of the times I'm using a split step when I'm moving forward. So as you can see, if I'm in a rally and I'm trying to move forward, it makes sense to stop in the split step stance so that I can stop my momentum, because when I jump into that athletic stance, now I'm in a way better position to react. I can sort of just lean. So when I'm at the back of the court, and if I'm just hitting drops or something, I don't necessarily need to use my split step on every shot, but as I start to move forward, it becomes a lot more beneficial because I can jump into that stance to get ready. So all a split step looks like is this. So I jump onto my toes straight into that athletic stance that we just talked about. And if it's a little bit too hard for you to jump, you could even just sort of step into that stance. You don't have to jump if your physicality doesn't allow it. The main thing you need to keep in mind is whenever your opponent's hitting the ball, you should be looking like this right as they make contact. You never want to be looking like this, or standing straight up. This is how you should be looking every time your opponent's hitting the ball. The next thing that you have to be doing if you want to move properly in pickleball is you need to be getting in quickly after your return, and you need to be ready for the third shot from your opponent. So what does that look like? It looks like this. So as you can see, by the time Drew hit that third shot, I'm right behind the kitchen in my athletic stance. So what you don't want it to look like is this. I hit my return, sort of just leisurely start coming in. Next thing you know, I'm hitting my 4th shot from right here, not even anywhere near the kitchen. The ball is at my feet. I'm in a bad position. So when you're hitting your return, you want to be moving through it. So you don't need to split step when your opponent hits the serve. You want to be moving forward so that you can take the return and immediately run into the kitchen, okay? So that's the first step. And you should go to the kitchen as fast as you safely can. So not everyone can run. I personally am able to run pretty quickly, so I can get in, and by the time my opponent hits their third shot, I'm right behind the kitchen every time. But even if you can't move super quickly, you should still sort of speed walk or get in with a very high sense of urgency. And you always want to be in this stance when they're hitting their third shot, because that's where they can go for a really hard drive. They might drop it somewhere at your heels. You need to be ready to react to something difficult, because their job on the third shot is to challenge you. So even if I get in quickly, if I'm not jumping into that stance, I might be off balance to where I'm not ready for that shot. I'm sure if you're playing games, a lot of the time you get up to the kitchen, they blast at you and it's really startling. So you need to make sure that after you run in, you don't just get there quickly, but you should also jump into your split step right when your opponent is hitting their third shot. And like I said earlier, you don't need to jump into the split step, that's ideal, but you can also sort of just get into the athletic stance too, and that should be pretty good as well. And guys, I just wanted to mention that right now we're trying to become the first pickleball channel in history to reach 250,000 subscribers. So if you want to help us make history, head below the video and hit the subscribe button. So the next thing that you have to understand in order to move properly on the pickleball court is that from the different sections of the court, whether you're at the kitchen, the transition zone, or the baseline, you need to have a different style of footwork. So from the kitchen, the goal is to put yourself in a position to react to your opponent's hard shot. So whether your opponent's hitting a third shot at you really hard, or they're hitting a speed up at you, you want to do whatever you possibly can to put yourself in a position to react. So what does that mean? It means that when they're hitting the ball, your head's still, you're looking right at them, you're on balance, and you're ready to react. So how we make that happen with our feet is we use this sort of shuffling technique. So when you're up here, the mindset should be less is more. You never really want to cross over. You never want to take a ton of short steps. What you want to do is as you're moving side to side, you should take big lunging steps. And you always sort of move like you're shuffling. So you see there, I shuffled. There, I just pivot back. You're really just taking the minimal possible steps so that when your opponent hits it hard at you, you're ready. So when Drew hits it hard, I'm standing in this position. You never want to be turned away or off balance when your opponent is about to hit the ball at you hard. So that's the most efficient way to cover at the kitchen. Remember, you're shuffling side to side, you're never crossing over, and you're taking the minimal possible steps. And a great way to practice this technique at home is with the Dink Master. So as you can see here, I can actually sort of start moving myself around, and I'm working on my dinking technique and my footwork here. And if you can do this, so if you can move side to side while you're dinking, while keeping the ball below this red line, you should be able to make it happen on the court too. So this is actually a very realistic way to practice this footwork. I know a lot of players aren't very accurate with their dinks when they're on the move. So if this is something that you need to work on, the Dink Master is a great way to make it happen. And if you want to get $20 off the Dink Master Pro at checkout, use code FOOTWORK. You'll get a $20 discount, and this will get sent to your house immediately so you can start practicing. So the first thing that you need to be thinking about from the back of the court is that once you see whether the ball's coming to your forehand or your backhand, you should immediately turn your shoulders. So if I see the ball's coming to my forehand, the first thing I do is I turn my shoulders, okay? From this position with my turned shoulders, whether it's a forehand or a backhand, this is where I need to move to the ball. So what that looks like is this. So as you can see there, I was hitting a drop. I had to back up a little bit so that I could get the ball at the right contact point. So when I say contact point, all I mean is where I'm hitting the ball. So after you turn your shoulders, your sole goal is to put yourself in the ideal position to get the right contact point. And usually the right contact point on either side is out to the side of your body, a little bit out in front. So you never really should be hitting the ball from behind your body when you're at the back of the court. And the way that you make that happen is with your footwork. So if I'm in a rally, whether I'm hitting drives or drops, as you can see, I do whatever I can to move myself in the position to where I'm hitting the ball from that contact point. You never want to be looking like this, where you're all over the place. You're not in the right position. See there, I'm reaching. One before that, I'm on my back foot. You also want to make sure that when you're in that right contact point, you have forward momentum with your body weight. So the way you make that happen is you use your feet to get into position early. So I'm not trying to get there right in the nick of time. I'm trying to get to the position early so that I can stop and move forward through the ball. So on a drop, that looks like this. I stop so I can move forward through the ball. There I actually had to back up a little bit. On a drive, it looks like this. I see where it's coming, move to it, so I can go forward through the ball. So the main thing to think about is when you're back here, you don't want to be off balance or else it's going to be super hard to be consistent. If I'm on my heels and I'm not getting into position quickly, it's pretty much impossible to hit good drop or drive like I just did there. So do whatever you can to get your contact points good and move forward through the ball, and your consistency will skyrocket. So the next style of footwork that's super overlooked is how you're moving through the transition zone. So it's very different than how you move from the back of the court. It's more similar to what you're doing at the kitchen. What it looks like though, is so after I hit my drop or my drive and I start to move forward, I may need to hit a few shots in this area, especially when I'm the serving player. So how it normally looks is as you're moving forward, you jump into a split step and you lunge to get the ball. So when I'm right here in this section of the court, my opponent's main goal is to hit the ball right at my feet. So from here, I'm also gonna be really low. So this is the lowest I should be in any section of the court. So what this looks like in an actual rally is, let's say I hit a third shot drop and I'm coming in. As I'm coming in, I want to jump into that split stance and then lunge to get the ball as it comes at my feet. So a lot of the time you're hitting what's called resets here, where you're just going into the kitchen and hitting a soft shot. So all you really need to do in this section of the court is stay low and lunge from side to side. If I hit a good reset or a good attack from this part of the court, I want to be super ready to get in fast so I can get to the kitchen. You don't want to get stuck here. But let's say I pop up the ball, right? So let's say I hit a bad reset. Then I'd actually be better off going back, starting the process over again. So your goal when you're here is to hit the ball and try to move forward, but it's totally fine if you hit a bad reset to get back quickly, or you can go back to your footwork that you should be doing from the back of the court. So that's why they call it the transition zone, because ideally you're transitioning forward, but sometimes you also might transition back to the baseline. And the last thing that you have to keep in mind if you want to move as good as possible when you're playing pickleball is that you should always do what you can to warm up your body. So the best players never come on the court without doing a little bit of some stretches, maybe some jogging around. If you're not warmed up, you increase your chances for injury, but you're also not just gonna be as able to move as freely. You're gonna feel stiff. I'm 26 and I still feel stiff when I don't warm up. You're gonna feel stiff. You're not gonna be able to get in those positions, and you're not gonna be as on balance when you hit the ball. So warm up before your games, then try to implement all the stuff we just went through, and you're gonna play way better right off the bat. This doesn't take a long time to implement. That's the best part about footwork, is you can get it going in your game very quickly, and it's so effective, it'll help you with every single shot. And if you wanna see the scientific explanation to how to hit a third shot drop, watch this.